To be honest, I didn't even know there was a problem that I was trying to solve. A whole lot of hard work. I would say a whole lot of pushing a boulder uphill. When you care about something so very much, other people will care about it too. You don't have to win the world, and you're never going to win the world overnight, but just do one thing. I don't believe anything will change for me at this company unless I go change something for myself. You're never going to know enough, and you're never going to be quite ready. And I found myself in that spot so many times. Everything takes time. And it probably took me a couple of years, if I'm being honest, to settle into a whole different way of thinking. In agriculture, especially, we don't get the opportunity to not deal with change. Everything's changing at a rapid pace.
Welcome to the Cultivating Leaders Podcast. I'm your host and curiosity captain, Nicole Ursig. If you are ready to lead better, think bigger, and grow faster, you're in the right place. We bring you real conversations with top leaders across food and agriculture, focused on the practical skills and mindsets you need to lead in today's environment. Today's guest is a visionary leader in agriculture who has built a career at the intersection of storytelling, innovation, and global impact. Marji Guyler-Alaniz, COO at AgriSompo North America, navigated a bold transition into corporate leadership while staying rooted in purpose. Previously, as the founder of FarmHer, she has reshaped how the industry sees and values women in agriculture. Through transitioning back into corporate agriculture, she's navigated challenges, pursued change, and stayed true to the agriculture industry. If you are scared to make a change in your career or are questioning your career path, Marji has the experience and wisdom to navigate this time with purpose. Marji, thank you so much for joining us today, and welcome to the pod.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to talk about this windy career journey.
Yeah, why don't we actually start there? Tell me a little bit more on, I gave a little bit of a preview of your career, but where do your roots in agriculture really start?
Oh, yeah. So I'm from Iowa. I will always be from Iowa. I don't live in that state anymore, but my grandparents were farmers. I grew up on a farm, but my parents didn't actually farm. They didn't work on the farm. So it was always around us. Like I always say, I could throw something and hit a field almost all of my life, up until recently, honestly. But I didn't even know that people worked in agriculture. It was just like what my family did, right? And it kind of my extended family. So, and I was in 4-H when I was growing up, but like a career in agriculture never jumped off the page to me. It was not what I was aiming for, but here I am.
Well, amazing. The most intriguing part, at least as we did our research, was you building FarmHer. So I've definitely heard of it, but for those who haven't, can you tell them what FarmHer is? And then I'm curious, what was the problem you saw and how it became hey, we need to solve this, and FarmHer is the solution.
Absolutely. Well, FarmHer is a brand for and about women in agriculture. It kind of flips the story from what you might have traditionally seen of how we tell the stories of farmers and agriculture, and it tells it from the female perspective, which is there on almost every farm and every ranch. It's just a different way of looking at things. And to be honest, I didn't even know there was a problem that I was trying to solve for a very long time. So I worked in corporate agriculture. I worked in crop insurance for a company in Iowa for 12 years. And throughout that journey, it never really struck me of who we were showing as the farmer or who we perceived as the person who was the farmer, right? And it took kind of something bold being in front of my face. And that was right after I had decided to leave that career, which is a whole nother story. The commercial was on during the Super Bowl, and it was a Ram truck commercial set to a speech by Paul Harvey called God Made a Farmer. Everybody nods. Everybody's seen it. It's like one of the most popular commercials ever in the United States. If you look at the views on YouTube, it's absolutely crazy. Absolutely beautiful commercial, right? It was just simple words set to still photos, and there were photos of the people who I could see in my life. And they look like your grandpa, or they look like your cousin, or whatever. And I watched that commercial literally the weekend after I had left my job for other reasons, and nothing hit me when I was watching that commercial. But a few days later, I read an article in the newspaper, which was the Des Moines Register, where I lived, and it pointed out that at that time, women made up a significant portion of farmers, but you never saw women as the face of farming. And I was like, well, I just quit my job. I'm not sure what I'm going to do next. I have a background in not business, but graphic design, journalism, and photography is where I started with my college degree. I was like, I can dust these things off and I can show people what women look like in agriculture. I can show people what they do, because at that point I was like, when I read the article, I was like, man, have I ever even seen a picture of a woman in agriculture that's not like just holding a chicken, which isn't like reality every day, right? Have I ever seen a picture of a woman working cattle or driving a tractor or running a grain cart or who knows what, changing a tire, like all the things? And I was like, I haven't, but I can change that. And so it started as a passion project. It started as a, I'm gonna take a few pictures and put them out there and see what happens. And it grew.
How did it grow exactly? How did it get from like you're taking pictures to there like a television series and now it's a whole brand?
Yeah, a whole lot of hard work. I would say a whole lot of pushing a boulder uphill, and being the biggest advocate I could for what I felt like was a very worthy cause. Learning, navigating, running, jumping, blood, sweat, tears, you name it. Like it took a whole lot of effort and energy, but I will tell you that I was extremely passionate about it from day one. I still remember it was actually in the month of April. So right around now in 2013 when I went to the first farm. And I will never forget it. I was so excited just to be there, to be watching, to be learning, to listen to her. And I just followed her around and I literally had no idea what I was doing. I mean, I had a photography undergraduate degree, but I'd never like gone to a farm and followed somebody through their day and tried to piece together what that looked like. And so I will always remember that passion and excitement. Like driving home, I could not wait to see what was on my camera. And the pictures looked exactly like what I hoped they looked like. And that like ignited something in me, because I was like, you know, I can show what these women do to a much broader audience. And it was exciting to me, even because most of the time when I would call somebody, they would say, you know, I would say, hey, I'm from FarmHer. I want to come photograph what you do as it went on. And they would be like, oh, I just do this, or I just do that. And I was like, oh, I know, like you run the world and I want to come show people that. Right. And so I got very passionate about it. And that's what I would say drove it to push that boulder uphill over the years that I was starting and building and scaling it. But it was a windy journey. I mean, I never thought there would be a TV show. None of those things were in my original business plan. But when you care about something so very much, other people will care about it too. And it was a pretty awesome thing to tell the story of. So, and it hadn't really been done in that way before. And so I think it made people listen. I think it was the right time in society. It was just a whole lot of things that came together that made it somewhat magical. A good name too, FarmHer. I mean, that was just like a boom, let's call it this, but that made it like memorable, right? So there's so many things that came together to build it to the brand that it is today. But I would say that looking back, you don't get to get off of it's just a whole lot of work to put something like that together, and you got to keep going at it.
What would you say to someone who maybe has an idea, like maybe they've had something sitting in the back of their brain like you had for FarmHer, and they know it's going to take a lot of work, or it may fail, or I don't know if I should pursue this. I don't know if I can make money at this. What would you tell them about knowing whether to actually go for it or not?
That's a great question, because after FarmHer got bigger, you know, people would come to me and they'd be like, I want to do this. How did you do it? And I was like, well, I definitely didn't have this in mind when I first started. But I am kind of my own worst enemy. So when I got this idea, and my husband is like my bounce, you know, I bounce everything off of him. He's my sounding board. And I was like, oh, I'm going to go do this. And then like shortly after, like within hours, I was like, there's no way I can do this. I quit my job. We don't have the money to do it. I have 2 little kids. Like, who's going to watch these kids? How am I going to go do all this? And he was like, stop, just do one thing. Like, just go photograph that farmer and see what happens. And I will tell you that I had to remind myself many times, you don't have to win the world, and you're never going to win the world overnight, but just do one thing, right? And for me, that was taking pictures. And then it turned into, I had to figure out how to build a website with no money. So I guess I'll figure out how to build a website, which, back in 2013 was very different than it is today. But there's tools. You can figure it out. You can figure out anything. We have the internet, right? And so then it turned into, I have to figure out how to start these social media pages. And then it turned into, people are paying attention. I have to figure out how to trademark this and back my way into like starting an actual business that has a sustainable business model over time. So that didn't all happen overnight. It happened consistently as it built, and I was able to kind of layer all those things on. But if you think you're gonna like take over the world from day one, that's gonna be really hard to do. Some people might do it, but that wasn't my method. And I still go back to what my husband said. He was like, just do one thing. Just go take the pictures.
I think that's great advice, because especially if you have big dreams or it feels overwhelming, or even if you don't know what's next, like just do the thing in front of you. It's almost like that, eat the elephant one bite at a time.
Yeah.
But I like that, just do one thing.
Yeah.
Like, what can you do right now?
Yep.
Yeah. So you built up FarmHer, and then you also decided to transition away from this amazing thing that you built that had grown probably beyond what you thought it could be. So tell me about that transition and navigating that piece of your career as well.
Absolutely. So, like I said, I started it in 2013, and my hopes and dreams absolutely got bigger when I saw who was paying attention and what opportunities there were there. And so I navigated, like I said, starting the business, scaling the business, having employees, the TV show piece of it, all things that I'd never done before. And it was all very exciting, and it was all new, and it was all a challenge for a very long time. And I loved that. I thrive on challenges. I love to have new things coming at me. It's just, maybe it's a crazy piece of me, but it's how I'm built. And so, and I really cared about, like I said, the subject matter. And so, all of the pieces were there to run after it for a very long time. And probably in year 7 or so, maybe 6 years in, one of my people that worked with me, and she was really insightful, and she kind of pushed me to go into this class called Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses. And I was like, I don't need that. This business is running great. We've got 7 people working here. They're all running after their own things. We're doing events all over the country. We touch, millions of people every week between, Sirius XM or the TV show or social or whatever it is. Like, I don't need that. But I'm so glad she pushed me to do that, because it kind of made me stop and go, okay, like, you've been running at this, you built this. What's next? And that class, it was like 12 weeks where you stepped out of your company to work on your company. And it was all types of small businesses. And I learned so much about, we made a plan for how to scale my company more. And then we also made a plan for like an exit strategy. And at that time I was like, I will never sell this. This is like my 3rd child, right? You don't sell your children, right? And, but I will say that the preparation of going through that kind of like laid a groundwork in my mind of what could happen if I was able to scale it more, or if I stayed right where I was, which really wasn't an option. It was like, you have to keep growing or you're going backwards, and especially in a small business. And so at that time, like I said, it was kind of some groundwork that was laid, even though I didn't realize it. And then COVID hit. And for somebody who was filming 25 TV episodes a year, we were doing a weekly radio show, podcast. We were doing we had 9 like ticketed events where thousands of people were coming to our FarmHer events all around the country. I was used to never sitting still. And then COVID happened, and it was like screeching halt. All you can do is sit still. And it was terrible. It was frightening as a small business owner. But when we came out of that, I was like, man, I don't know if I can ramp myself back up into that again. I did all of that. I experienced all of it, and all of the thrill and excitement and energy. And so coming out of COVID was when I first kind of was like, okay, I don't know that I'm going to be able to get that passion back up to where I had it before, because we'd already gone through so much that scaling. And so some other things started to happen where it made me realize, this might be the path that is best. And it's so hard. I still tell people all the time. It's like, well, I said it before. It's like my third child. It's like connected to who I am, and that is an extremely hard thing to start to realize, like how you would look without that. So, I started to like kind of just mentally play with that. And then I got a job offer, you guys. And that's part of like what started me thinking about, okay, maybe there is a different path here, and maybe there is another way to look at this. And it was a great job offer. Honestly, it was if I would have had this before, I probably would have never left corporate America, but I also would have never left, or I would have never walked back into the type of role that I'm in had I not built FarmHer. So it's like a chicken and egg thing. But yeah, it was a difficult decision. But I tell people all the time, I had a baby and it went off to college because I gave it everything that I could for a very long time, and I'm so incredibly proud of it. But now it's out in the world, growing with other resources and other people and other great minds thinking about it.
Yeah. What I'm curious of, Marji, is it feels like as you tell your story, it's like, okay, this thing just happened and I chased it, and I like chased what was in front of you. Do you think you could go back and like design your career path the way that it has turned out?
110% no. I could have never guessed that. Like I am a type A person. I have a plan. I want that plan to go the way that I foresee it. I worked in crop insurance for 12 years, but that wasn't my plan. I didn't even know crop insurance existed, but I stumbled my way in the door and I never left. I was like, moving through that corporate ladder. I had 5 positions in those 12 years, and I learn, I grow, I move on, I add pieces to the puzzle. I never saw myself stepping away from it, first of all. But again, I'm so glad I did, because I don't think I would have found a way to give what I could to the world, to agriculture, right? But no, it has been a very windy path. But I don't think any of it would have happened without the piece that came before it.
Yeah. Oh, that completely makes sense. What advice would you give to, I would say, people like maybe mid-career or even a little bit younger who are like, I have aspirations for the type of career I want to have, or even the type of life and career I want to have. I want to be able to plan or map some of this. But I think we talk to, especially on this podcast, we talk to leaders all the time that are like, well, I met this person and this happened. And it feels like there is like how much is planning and how much is, I would say, maybe habit building or character, and like if you had to mix it and like those 3 things of like, hey, I have a plan, I have maybe built my character and my habits of learning and growing, and then just serendipity.
Yeah. I'm having trouble in my mind giving like great like percentages to break that down, right?
Yeah.
But yes, you need a plan, but that's like less than half of the puzzle. A huge piece of the puzzle is build your networks, connect with other people, don't burn bridges. You don't know where those things will lead you, and that's part of your plan, right? Like whether you realize it or not, those things will come back into play, and they absolutely have for me throughout my career. And people tell you that, and when you're young and you see something that you want to go after, because I was the same way. I had those 5 different positions in 12 years, and I was like, climb, I'm getting there, I'm going where I want. And then it hit a spot where I realized, I was like, I will be sitting in this same spot 20 years from now. I don't believe anything will change for me at this company unless I go change something for myself. And so don't be afraid to walk away from something when it's not right anymore, is what I would say. And that's very scary and that's very difficult. And I will say I had support. My husband is a beautiful soul who like gave me the space to go do that. And that's not always easy, right? Like that's not always an answer that people can have, but who you are and how you go about your world, and the culture that you build around yourself, the networks that you have, that is probably the biggest piece of the puzzle, I would say. For me, it has been over time. And then there's a little bit of serendipity. I don't, sometimes people are like, you're so lucky this happened. And I'm like, there was an element of luck and timing. Absolutely. But there's all those other pieces that you have to have. And, I, time and time again, have leaned back on those networks. I've picked up the phone and made phone calls when I don't know something or I need a little bit of advice. And sometimes just, having coffee with somebody can swing back around and present something. And then here's the other thing that I would say: if you're mid-career, don't be too scared of something big right in front of you. Right? I'm I'm sure many people listening have had maybe something that they're like, this is something I could swing for the fences for, and I could go do it, but I probably don't know enough, or I'm probably not quite ready. You're never going to know enough, and you're never going to be quite ready. And I found myself in that spot so many times. And building FarmHer gave me confidence in that I can jump into something and not know it, and I will figure it out, and I will lean on my network. But it's you have to have that to be able to go after it.
Yeah, absolutely. I am curious, from your perspective, you said it takes a lot of courage to walk away, especially walking away from something good when it's not the right fit anymore. For you, how did you know when it wasn't right anymore?
It was a mix of things. The company I was working for had been sold. So a lot of things had shifted and changed in the last few years that I was there. So that made it a little bit easier because the culture had changed a little bit, and my plan had been like disrupted in that what I thought was going to happen wasn't happening. I had two young kids, and to be completely honest, we our trusted daycare that we had for them, she decided to do something different with her life, which she's brilliant and I'm glad she did. But that left us in a lurch. And then we had daycare issues. And that was really, really hard as a working mom. Like, I love to say you can do it all, but man, your kids have to be taken care of, and you have to know that they're safe and that they're in a good spot, right? And so that was a piece of the puzzle that was kind of gnawing at me. And I wasn't loving what I was doing anymore. I found myself disengaged. I wasn't giving it my all. I'm not sure what I was giving it. I was just going through some motions. And so like all these things kind of hit me. And like I said, I want to see change. I want to see growth. I know what I can give to an organization or an effort or a project. And I wasn't going to have the opportunity to give it there. So that's what kind of all came together for me to make that decision. And then I told myself, you only get 6 months. Like, this isn't a forever. Like, you're going to take a step back and jump off this train that you've been on. And so I gave myself like a timeline, because that helped me mentally, like, think, okay, like, you can leave, but get to something. So
Yeah. I love that. It gives it a like, hey, there's a deadline
yeah.
here. I'm curious too. I think you had mentioned this as you started to tell some of your story of like being able to walk away from things, whether that is a corporate career or selling a business or just making a life transition. What advice do you have for dealing with the identity piece of that? Because you do, like, whether you walk away from a job or like you sent your baby off to college, like there is a piece of when you put so much into work, and I think the way a lot of really good leaders do and people in agriculture do, right? Because we're very passionate about what we do. How do you deal with the identity shift and change?
That is hard. I can't say that I've completely figured that out. I have changed drastically course, over time. And every time it requires a whole lot of like self-reflection and kind of going, where are you? I like to write. I when that shift is happening for me of like who I am and how I'm perceived in the world, and a major change in some way, it usually isn't everything in your life that's changing. So you can, lean on some of those pieces that are consistent, and over time, everything becomes the way it is, right? So it just takes time. But I like to write. Writing was a piece of FarmHer with a blog, and I'd write the stories about the women, and it's a good way for me to get my thoughts out, and it helps kind of sort everything out. So I'll go to that sometimes, but time is the great fixer of all things. And so Whenever something is new and dramatic and shifts like that, you just have to kind of put one foot in front of the other and know it'll change. But with FarmHer, it was a massive identity shift. I mean, I would go places and people who watch the TV show would be like, "You're FarmHer." Like they don't know my name. They just be like, "You're FarmHer." And they still do. Like people within my organization today, I'll go to an adjuster school. We've got adjusters all over the country. They live and work in rural America. And I think just like a month ago, somebody was like, "Hey, I saw you on FarmHer." And I'm like, "Yeah." And I'm Marji. Nice to meet you. So it is difficult. It is, especially in the world of personal brands like we have online, right? Like and I try to be very mindful with FarmHer brand of, it wasn't about me. It was about the women who were the story of FarmHer. But it was just part of who I was. And it's taken time. I sold FarmHer to RMG Media, which is RFD TV, about 3 years ago, and I still have it as a piece of my identity parked in the back of my mind at times. So it doesn't have to go completely away, but it will become the new norm.
Yeah, I appreciate you talking about that too, because I think often people like don't realize that that's normal, of like the identity shift when you walk away from something that was really good, but just not either not a fit for a season of life anymore or a season of career. And I can absolutely relate to what you're saying, Margie, of like, as I have shifted pieces of my career of like, you get known as something and then people are like, well, now I don't, whether it's people like being like, now what do you do? Or now do I still know you? Or how do I show up in the world? Am I really different? Is that part of what, like, you're so much more than your career, but it's also a piece of us, and understanding that there is a sometimes even emotional grieving in the shift, even when it's sometimes a good shift in a career path.
Absolutely. The interesting thing that just popped into my mind too is there's when you shift into something new. So when I shifted out of FarmHer and back into the company I'm in today, people knew one version of me, but then I have a whole different version that I brought to AgriSompo that people didn't see. Like they saw the TV version, right? But they didn't see what I could do to start a business, scale a business, sell a business, right? Like they didn't see all of those pieces of it. So it's an interesting shift of like moving into something different when people perceive you as one thing too. That I still like in my head battle a lot. Like I said, people will say, "You're FarmHer." And I'm like, "Yes, but I'm Marji, who's the chief operating officer of this company too."
You get to add like ands to it. Like it's not that that piece has gone away, it's just
Right.
shifted. Do you think as you have gone through these different phases, you've had to shed some things to add things? Is this the best version of Margie today?
I That is a great question. I don't know what's yet to come, but I feel like this version of Margie is a pretty great one. You I go back to looking at myself when I was in my early 20s and through my 20s and into my 30s and wanting so badly to build my career and not really knowing how to keep doing that. I look back and it takes a whole lot of small movements that are uncomfortable. It takes a lot of having the courage to get outside of your comfort zone on a very consistent basis, and that builds a whole lot of confidence over time, and you don't even know it's happening until you're there. And when that confidence is built, then it's like you're almost unstoppable. You're like, "I can do that. Let's go do that. We can figure that out. All we need is great people, great ideas, some space to strategize, some money," right? Like we can figure that out. And you start to see that like these things are not insurmountable. And it kind of scales your thinking in a really exciting way, or it has for me. So um, it's a pretty great version of Margie today, I would say, if I'm talking about myself in the third person.
Yeah, I love that you even said you don't know because you don't know what's yet to come, and that like even that mindset I think is so exciting and shows not only like why you've been where you've been, but that there's always opportunity for growth and what's next, and having that mindset can lead you on really exciting paths that maybe you didn't know
Yeah,
existed.
absolutely.
The other question I have for you, you talked earlier about networking, and I feel like we hear about this so often. And I always love to try and give people tangible advice. And so I'm curious, as you talk about building your network and building something that you didn't know how to build before, who did you call or what did you do when you didn't have someone in your network that, like, hey, I know they're great at this, or I don't know how to do this, and I don't know that I know someone who's done this before?
It depends. What's the issue, right? Of who to call. Like I think a lot about. I had no idea how to financially like put even like a business. I had a master's in business, but I didn't know how to like bring all of that together. How do you not? I'm not saying just hire a person. How do you pay a person? How do you take out Social Security? How do you do all these things, right? And I did find that over time, you really need a good lawyer on your side, somebody that you can ask questions to, and you don't feel dumb about whatever questions you need to ask. You need a really good accountant. And those are two essential things. And I got both of those from my dad, honestly. If you like, when I look back at FarmHer, um, there were times when I didn't know how to navigate. Even when I stepped into AgriSompo, I was like, this is a whole different world. And I called a friend of mine who I had been connected to through my years at FarmHer, she's just amazing and smart, and she is a strong female in agriculture. She's been in the DC space for a long time. Her name is Krista Harden, and she gave me some really great advice.
Oh, we've had Krista Harden on this podcast. She was a wonderful
Krista's
interview.
brilliant.
Mhm.
Yeah, she's brilliant. I called her for something very specific that I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, what do I do here? And she gave me some very specific advice that like got me down the road. I think the biggest thing is don't be afraid to ask whoever it is. You're going to ask different people for different things depending on what the issue is in front of you. But if I was afraid to ask, I would never be sitting here today. And most people won't think less of you for asking. Most people want to help, right? And you know that's when it comes to like advice about a career thing or about a business thing or something that you just don't know. But when it comes to building your networks, I also have learned over time that it sounds like a scary thing. It can be difficult to walk into a space and to be like, oh, is this person gonna respond to me? Are they gonna want to come meet me for coffee when I just reached out of nowhere to them? Most people are looking for that connection too, and show up with your authentic self and I think cool things can happen when you put yourself out there and reach out to people, just from a networking perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about the piece of luck in this. I saw something recently that someone said, like, luck hits a big target. And so make yourself a target of like, ask the question or reach out or say yes to the opportunity, or like just making, like, putting yourself out there enough so that that right timing or the serendipitous moment or whatever it is, meeting the right person at the right time can actually happen.
Absolutely and completely. I think back to early days of FarmHer when I was like, what am I even doing? It's this thing, it's kind of growing, but I promised myself when people would want to do an interview or they want to publish pictures, or I would give them pictures, I would talk to them as long as it was going to paint the women that were a part of FarmHer in a positive light and not be something negative or bad. But that opened up so many opportunities, and I I worked in insurance before. I'd never done interviews. I'd never like sat in those spaces before. I did not know what I was doing, but I look back and those opened up so many opportunities for me because it put a big target out there. It absolutely did.
Love that. Okay, so let's transition. We've kind of skirted around it, but your role that you're in today and the company that you work for. So you sent the baby off to college with Farm Her and then joined corporate agriculture again. Tell me about what is it that you do today, and what company that you work for?
Yeah, I absolutely still work in crop insurance, which is the same industry I worked in before. I never thought I would go back, but I found my way back in the door, and um, I absolutely love what I get to do today. So, AgriSompo we're part of a global company called Sompo, primarily commercial and some property insurance all around the world. And based in Japan, but I'm part of the international arm of the company. And we write crop insurance. So we insure farmers all around the US, farmers and ranchers. We're one of the top 4 companies that provide crop insurance. So crops growing in the field. And here's what I love about it. We have a pretty significant impact on the day in and day out capability of people to continue doing what they do. Grow crops year after year when catastrophe happens, which it does. This is weather, right? Drought hits, floods, you name it. And so we get to be a part of helping manage that risk for farmers and ranchers all over the country. So my role is we have 6 kind of business producing regions, and I lead those 6 regions today. And so they're responsible for all the functions of crop insurance in their geographic area. And I work with the leaders of those regions to make sure that at the end of the day that we provide the right coverage, that we you know, take in the premiums when they want to pay, that we pay out claims when it's time for claims to be paid. All of the functions that run through those business units really fall under me. So it's wild. No one day is the same. I will tell you that, and it can be a challenge, and I love that.
Awesome. Tell me about the biggest mindset shift in going from leading FarmHer to AgriSompo, and what, if anything, felt very much the same.
That was a major mindset shift, and probably the biggest thing is working for yourself and setting your own whole universe. How the company is, how it's growing, who we partner with. All of those things were like completely up to me at FarmHer. And so if I saw something over here, I could say, we're going to pivot, we're going to go this way, and we're going to start doing this. In a corporate structure, in any corporate structure, it's never that easy. There's lots of layers to it. It is a big boat, and it doesn't turn fast. Though there's a lot of things that I'm really proud of, that our boat turns pretty quick, and we have less bureaucracy, I think, in some ways than some corporations do. But it was a major shift, I will tell you, just to like go from working for yourself to working as part of a team of almost 900 people spread all around the country. It's just, everything's different, right? And so it just took time too. Back to the whole, like, how do you get your career where you want it to be? Everything takes time. And it probably took me a couple of years, if I'm being honest, to like settle into like a whole different way of thinking, like fully settle in.
What pieces of leadership translated from being a founder and an entrepreneur to leading at an executive level at a corporate organization?
There's a lot of things that do translate. You have to have a plan. You have to have a strategy. You have to be surrounded by great people who care about what they do. That there's no organization, there's no farm that runs, with one person, and any business of any size is exactly the same. And so those things all translate across. It's just the scale might be different, or where you're doing it might be different, but those things are essential. They matter so much. And those are the core to any business. And I think I learned those inherently at FarmHer, while on a very different scale than what we manage now. But the basics are the same. You have to have more money coming in than goes out. That's pretty standard, right, in any business. And so, and building those networks, and thinking not just about today, but down the road, and what's going to come next. And in agriculture, and anywhere in the world, but in agriculture especially, we don't get the opportunity to not deal with change. Everything's changing at a rapid pace, and if you're not a part of it, then you're like left in the dust.
So I think now we're going to move into our rapid fire segment. And so, Marji, I'm going to ask you some questions, and as best as you can, you try to answer in like one sentence or less. And as best as I can, I will try not to ask follow-up questions. What is the one word you would use to describe your career journey so far?
Jagged.
Love that. Do you have a go-to gut check question when you're facing a big decision?
My go-to gut check question is why? Why do you want to do this? Is it ego? Is it because you can bring something great to it? What is it?
What is a green flag that tells you an opportunity is probably right for you?
I'm going to go with gut on that one. Your gut will tell you a lot. And if it feels right and it looks right and it smells right, it probably is.
What is a daily habit that keeps you grounded during times of change?
I do Pilates as many days a week as I can.
Yes. I believe that physical movement is a leadership skill. Like it's a piece of leadership. Absolutely. What is one belief about careers or leadership that you have changed your mind on?
That it has to be traditional. It's not going to look the same way for everybody. And I think we can get caught up in, well, my path didn't look like that, but it doesn't have to be traditional.
What is a FarmHer location or story that you wish you could go back and visit again?
Oh, that's really tough. I don't know if I can rapid fire that one. The last one that I was at, always, that's my answer. Wherever I most recently was the coolest, neatest, most interesting thing. But I'm going to give you one answer: oysters.
That now has me. I love that answer, Margie, because now that has me. I'm going to have to Google that story after this.
Yes, absolutely. Bar Harbor, oysters.
Amazing. What is one piece of advice you would go back and tell younger Margie, knowing what you know now?
One piece of advice I would tell younger Margie is be patient, keep at it. And that has been the path, but it just takes patience and time.
Okay, so at AFA, we love hot takes. So unconventional or bold opinions, either about agriculture or leadership. Do you have a hot take, Margie, on leadership or the agriculture industry?
I said part of it before, but change is inevitable. It's happening at a faster and faster pace. Farms are getting bigger. There will be less and less actual farmers over time. Climate is changing. Data will drive everything. And these are kind of core tenets, but it's going to change faster than any of us can anticipate when you bring AI into this realm too. So I don't know if people love it when I would say, the traditional thought of what we think of as farming is going to be no longer. It maybe already is, right? Over time. And that's something that we all have to adapt to. I'm not saying that farmers of every size won't exist, but what we thought of as farming will shift dramatically in the next decade.
I really enjoy that hot take because I think we can all see that is coming, and it's going to require leaders who are willing and able to shift and change as our world and as our industry changes at a very rapid pace.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Margie. So at AFA, we are all about building bridges and connecting people, ideas, and opportunities across the agriculture industry. So before we let you go, where can people connect with you and learn more about you?
The best way that I would say to connect with me is on LinkedIn. Go search up my name, connect with me. I love LinkedIn. It's probably the space I spend most of my time on these days. And from a professional standpoint, it's a great place to connect. Everyone should be there.
Well, thank you, Margie. I appreciate you so much for joining us on the Cultivating Leaders podcast. This has been such a fun conversation. And thank you for telling us about your winding career journey and the lessons you've learned along the way. I know you've inspired me, and I'm sure our listeners to be okay with the unexpected and maybe choose some adventure instead of, have a plan for your career, but be prepared to do things that may be unexpected. So thank you so much for being with us today, Margie. I really appreciate it. Thanks for listening to the Cultivating Leaders podcast, where leaders grow. If this episode challenged your thinking, be sure to share it with someone else who is on a similar leadership journey. You can stay connected with the Cultivating Leaders podcast by following Ag Future America on social media or drop a comment in the episode description. We'll see you again on the next episode.